Today, we're talking about something that I know comes up all the time, especially around holidays, vacations, birthdays, weddings, even just a Friday night out with friends, and that's alcohol and gut health. If you're dealing with IBS, SIBO, or really any kind of sensitive digestion, you've probably wondered, is alcohol making my symptoms worse? Are there certain drinks that are easier on my gut than others? And is it even possible to enjoy alcohol without totally throwing off all the progress I've made with my gut? And I get that. You want to feel good, but you also want to enjoy your life. And the good news is you can absolutely do both. So today I'm going to break down what alcohol actually does to your gut, which options are usually better tolerated, and how to enjoy a drink without backtracking on your health goals. Let's start out talking about how alcohol actually affects your gut. Because if you're going to make empowered choices, it helps to understand what's really going on underneath the surface. I know for myself, I always like to understand the why of things. So that's what I'm going to share with you. So, the first effect alcohol has is on the microbiome. Your gut is home to trillions of bacteria. Some are good, some are not so good. And that balance is absolutely essential for digestion, immune function, and even your mood. And alcohol disrupts this ecosystem. It's been shown to reduce levels of beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria while promoting the growth of more inflammatory or opportunistic strains like Enterobacteriaceae. Here we try to pronounce these species of bacteria. And that's a problem, especially if you already have underlying dysbiosis. Even moderate drinking, like 3 to 4 drinks a week, can start to shift your microbial landscape in ways that make it harder to keep inflammation down or maintain regular digestion. So, if you're somebody with IBS or IBD, or you're recovering from a gut infection, that shift can be enough to trigger symptoms. And second, alcohol can increase your gut permeability, aka leaky gut. That term gets thrown around a lot, but what it really means is that the tight junctions in your gut lining, think of them as gatekeepers, they start to loosen. So things that should stay inside the gut, like undigested food particles or bacterial fragments, start leaking into the bloodstream. And when that happens, your immune system goes into high alert. And this contributes to inflammation that goes in other parts of the body that's systemic, food sensitivities, brain fog, joint pain, you name it. A lot of inflammatory based symptoms that happen around your body originate in the gut. And if you're already dealing with a compromised gut barrier, say from stress or antibiotics, a processed diet, or underlying conditions like celiac or autoimmune disease, alcohol is kicking it when it's already down. So let's talk about the bacterial overgrowth, especially if you've been told you have SIBO or if you suspect you have SIBO. One thing a lot of people don't realize is that alcohol actually behaves a lot like sugar in the gut. It's a fermentable compound, which means it can feed microbes, especially the ones that are in the wrong place, like in the small intestine. So if you already have bacterial overgrowth or even yeast overgrowth like candida, alcohol is basically fuel for the fire. Certain bacteria and yeast strains can actually metabolize alcohol, producing gas and toxins like acetaldehyde, which is not only inflammatory but also directly toxic to your gut lining. And some of these bugs, especially the methane producers and gram-negative bacteria like Klebsiella, thrive in the presence of alcohol. And it's not always immediate. Some people feel fine that night, but wake up super bloated the next day. Others might feel it within 20 minutes of finishing their drink. And if your gut motility is slow, which is super common with SIBO, especially the methane type, alcohol tends to hang around longer in the gut, giving those microbes even more time to ferment it. And the fact that alcohol can also decrease your secretory IgA, and that's your gut's frontline immune defense. And it can also reduce your overall resilience of your gut lining. With all those things combined, it really does create a perfect storm for dysbiosis to take root or get worse. And let's be honest, you're really just consuming the alcohol. There's usually added sugar in the drinks, there's carbonation, there may be gluten and additives if you're having beer. So all the things that microbes love and that your gut probably doesn't. So if you feel bloated, gassy, foggy headed, or even just off the day after drinking, even just a little bit, that might be why. It could be more than just a hangover. It could be your gut trying to recover from microbial overdrive. And we talked earlier about how alcohol gets metabolized into acetaldehyde. That toxic byproduct that feeds overgrowth and irritates the gut also plays a big role in inflammation. It damages the cells that line your gut, it increases oxidative stress, and it weakens the tight junctions that keep your gut barrier sealed. So, if your gut is already a little inflamed, maybe from a recent flare or food sensitivities or an underlying condition like IBS or IBD, celiac, then alcohol acts like lighter fluid, and even one or two drinks can be enough to tip you into a flare. So, you might feel it as bloating or loose stools, urgency, cramping, or just general discomfort. And to make matters worse, it does get more layered from there. So when the gut barrier breaks down, endotoxins, I mentioned just a second ago about how when you have that leaky intestinal barrier, bacterial fragments can get into the bloodstream, and we call those LPS, lipopolysaccharides. It's part of the cell wall of the bacteria. So those are endotoxins that leak into the bloodstream, and that activates the immune system, drives that systemic inflammation. The liver also plays a role. So when it's busy trying to detoxify alcohol, it's less available to help clear out inflammatory byproducts and support gut barrier repair. So not only are you triggering inflammation, but you're also temporarily slowing down your body's ability to cool inflammation back down. And then alcohol can also affect your immune signaling. It can suppress your immune response in some ways while also increasing the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, especially TNF alpha and interleukin 6, which have been linked to both gut and systemic inflammation. So, for those of you who are already dealing with something like ulcerative colitis or celiac or Crohn's, gastritis, or just an irritated gut lining from stress or dysbiosis, drinking is like striking a match on dry grass. You might have been holding things together, but one drink too many, and boom, you've got a flare on your hands. Another component of this is actually digestion. Alcohol does slow down gastric emptying, meaning your stomach takes longer to move food into your small intestine. That delay might not sound like a big deal, but when food hangs out in your stomach too long, it starts to ferment, and that fermentation can cause gas, bloating, pressure, and that heavy, overstuffed feeling that makes you want to just unbutton your pants by the end of dinner. Alcohol also interferes with the production of digestive enzymes and stomach acid, both of which are critical to break down your food. Without enough enzymes, protein, fats, and carbs don't get digested properly, and undigested food becomes fuel for microbes further down the line. Without enough stomach acid, you may not absorb your nutrients well, and you're more likely to deal with things like burping, bloating, or even feed microbial overgrowth over time. And then there's reflux. Alcohol also relaxes the lower esophageal sphincter, that little valve that keeps the stomach contents from creeping back up into your esophagus. And if you're prone to heartburn, GERD, or sour burps, a couple drinks might just make those symptoms noticeably worse, especially if there's sugar in there, carbonation, citrus mixer, those types of things in your drinks as well. All of those are common triggers for IBS, and when you stack them together, your gut has to work a lot harder to stay balanced. So it's no surprise that alcohol can be a digestive trigger after we talk through all those different ways it affects our GI tract, especially if your system is a little sensitive. But I know this is sounding just like a bummer here, but that doesn't mean you have to live like a monk or swear off every drink forever. It's really about understanding your personal limits, knowing your body's signals, and figuring out which choices support your gut instead of setting it back. So let's break down the different types of alcoholic beverages, and we're going to talk about which ones tend to cause the most issues and which of them cause fewer issues. So, beer. Beer is like a double whammy for the gut. It has gluten, which can be inflammatory even in people without celiac disease. especially if you have IBS, leaky gut, or an autoimmune condition. On top of that, beer is carbonated, which introduces extra gas into your system and can stretch the intestinal walls, which triggers bloating and discomfort, especially if motility is already slow or your microbiome is off. Some beer also contains yeast residues, which can be aggravating for some people who are dealing with yeast overgrowth or histamine intolerance. Let's talk about sweet mixed drinks next. The thing about those is they're packed with sugar, right? And that's what makes them so delicious, but it's a problem for a few reasons. First, sugar feeds both gut bacteria and yeast, which can worsen symptoms if you're dealing with SIBO, candida, or general dysbiosis. And I know that a lot of you listening are hearing some of these terms and you're like, I don't know if I'm dealing with SIBO, candida. I don't know what dysbiosis is. The most common thing we see at the root of IBS symptoms or just functional digestive symptoms like diarrhea, abdominal pain, gas, bloating is microbial imbalance. And microbes could be bacteria, they can be yeast, they can be parasitic microbes, and they can happen in the small intestine or in the large intestine. So these different terms I'm mentioning are referring to different types of microbial imbalance, and that can cause us to have intolerances to certain foods or components in foods like sugars in this conversation about alcoholic drinks and alcohol itself, because these microbes ferment alcohol. So I just wanted to pause there. I know we have many listeners who are very versed in all of this stuff and others who might be more new to the topic and they don't know what some of these words mean. SIBO, it stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's when the bacteria is overgrown in your small intestine. Dysbiosis is more of a general term of imbalance of favorable to less favorable bacteria. Could be in the large intestine, could encompass SIBO. And then candida is yeast overgrowth. And that could be anywhere, small intestine, large intestine, can be in other parts of the body. So we're talking about sweet mixed drinks. The excess sugar also spikes blood glucose, which can lead to insulin fluctuations and often contributes to gut-brain symptoms like fatigue or irritability or even anxiety the next day. And also these sugary drinks, they ferment rapidly in the gut. They come into contact with gut microbes, they ferment rapidly, especially when there's bacterial overgrowth or even poor enzyme function. And this can lead to bloating, gas, and pain, sometimes within minutes in the case of SIBO. The next one I want to talk about is cocktails with soda or juice. And here's where you get the worst of both worlds. You get carbonation and sugar. And the fizz stretches your stomach and small intestine with gas, while the sugar leaves microbes something to ferment. I think it's similar to the mixed drinks. Wine coolers and hard seltzers also tend to be ultra processed, and these can have lots of artificial sweeteners or sugar alcohols like erythritol or sorbitol, which are known high FODMAP ingredients and can be hard to absorb. They pull water into the gut and they cause gas. They can also contain, quote, natural flavorings, which we don't know, which is a very non-specific term, and additives. So basically, they're substances that they don't want to disclose when we see those on ingredient lists. So for people with sensitive guts or histamine issues, those extras can lead to brain fog, cramping, or loose stools. And because they're so easy to sip quickly, it's common to drink more of them without realizing it, making the reaction even worse. If you're going to drink, try to stick with simple spirits and dilute them with water or soda water. Sip slowly, not just to avoid overdoing it, but to give your digestive system time to keep up. Your gut can usually handle a small amount of stress. It's the stacked hits that lead to symptoms. So spacing things out, staying hydrated, and listening to how your body responds is very helpful. That's just a tip if you are going to enjoy the ones that we just talked about that could be challenging on your gut. Now we're going to talk about safer alcohol choices for sensitive guts. Let's shift gears here because you guys, those of you who are a little familiar with my work or have listened to the podcast before, I'm not one of those doom and gloom, you can't ever have fun people. So one of the core goals of everything I do is to help you enjoy your life. And that means showing you how to make room for things you love without constantly flaring your gut, undoing all your progress. So To do that, we just need to be strategic, and that starts with knowing which types of alcohol are more likely to support you versus completely backfiring. So, the ones that are going to be the better tolerated, the first one is dry wine, especially white or red in moderation. Dry wines are lower in sugar and don't contain carbonation, which is a benefit for bloating and gas. Just keep in mind that red wine tends to be higher in histamine. So if you're someone who gets headaches or skin flushing or feels really off after drinking, white wine might be slightly better option because it's a bit lower in histamine. They both have histamine though, so if you're super sensitive to histamine, you'd want to steer clear of any wine. The next better option would be vodka or gin, ideally distilled versions, which is most of them. Now, I know that I said earlier, alcohol feeds microbes. So keep in mind that all of the alcohol choices we're talking about still feed microbes, but these are what we consider cleaner spirits. They're distilled liquors, means most of the impurities, sugar, and proteins, including gluten, are removed during processing. And what you're left with is a fairly neutral, low sugar alcohol that doesn't come with a bunch of extra ingredients that could flare your symptoms. Of course, what you mix it with matters. Sugary soda, sugary juice, or artificial sweeteners can change the whole picture. But if you keep it simple, like vodka with water or soda water and a squeeze of lime, you're much likely to tolerate it better than something sweet or fizzy. The next one is tequila, specifically 100% agave tequila. This one surprises a lot of people, but tequila is when it's made from 100% blue agave can actually be one of the more gut-friendly spirits out there. One reason is that it's not grain-based. Vodka and gin, even the clean gluten-free versions, are typically made from grains like corn, wheat, or rye. Those grains are distilled, so technically the gluten is removed, but some people with sensitive guts or underlying inflammation still don't do well with the grain-based alcohols. And tequila, on the other hand, comes from agave, a naturally gluten-free, low FODMAP plant that tends to be easier on the gut. It also has fewer congeners, which are those fermentation byproducts that can worsen hangovers and trigger inflammation. So this is especially true with silver or blanco tequila, which hasn't been aged or mixed with colorings or flavorings. Another reason tequila may be better tolerated is it's often sipped slowly or enjoyed neat, which means it's less likely to be mixed with sugary soda, juice, or artificial sweeteners. So definitely once you add it to a margarita, make a margarita out of it, we're losing out on some of that benefit. But that alone, when it's sipped alone and slowly, it makes a big difference in how your body handles it, especially if you have SIBO, reflux, or reactive digestion. That doesn't mean that tequila magically prevents hangovers, but compared to sweet cocktails or low quality liquors, a clean 100% agave tequila in a small amount is less likely to leave you inflamed, bloated, or foggy the next day, especially if you hydrate and support your body afterwards. Now, I'm just going to share with you some practical hacks because it's one thing to know alcohol can be tough on the gut, but it is challenging to navigate special occasions, birthdays, dinners, vacations, weddings, and still take care of yourself without flaring your symptoms. I'm going to share with you some tips here, real life strategies. The first one is don't drink on an empty stomach. This one makes a huge difference. We all know that, but it makes a big difference with gut health too. When you drink without eating, alcohol gets absorbed more quickly, it hits your system faster. It's also more irritating to the gut lining when it's not mixed with food, and that can increase inflammation, worsen reflux, and spike blood sugar. So before you drink, try to eat a balanced meal, something with protein, fat, and fiber, like grilled chicken with avocado, salmon and rice, or even just a handful of nuts if you're in a hurry or if you're in a pinch, maybe with some carbs with that, like a banana or something. This will slow down the absorption of the alcohol. It'll protect your gut lining, and it helps you feel more stable while you're drinking as well. Quick hack for you here Adding a spoonful of chia seeds to water or yogurt an hour before drinking and taking it down. The chia seeds will expand in your stomach and help slow absorption even more. Plus, it adds fiber and minerals, which your gut will thank you for later. So that's just a little hack to slow the absorption of the alcohol, especially if you haven't been able to have a meal recently. The next tip I have for you is choosing your mixers wisely. So even the cleanest spirits can be wrecked by what you mix them with. In the example of the tequila, getting that nice clean white tequila and then turning it into a margarita. So we want to be mindful about what we're mixing our spirits with. Soda water, plain water with lemon, maybe a fruit infused water like a cucumber infused water are really good options. They're refreshing, low in sugar, and easier on the gut. And then we want to steer clear of diet sodas due to the artificial sweeteners, tonics. A lot of people with IBS just react to these, the sucralose, the aspartame, the sugar alcohols. One of my favorite tips here, though, to flavor your cocktail is make a gut-friendly cocktail cube. You freeze a mix of lemon juice, maybe grated ginger, mint, and a pinch of salt into ice cubes and drop one into soda water with vodka or tequila. And boom, you've got a delicious anti-inflammatory mocktail base that actually supports digestion. And then lastly, be mindful of the quantity. More isn't always better. If you're in a gut healing phase, I recommend sticking to one drink max and space it out. Drink it slowly, set it down between sips, give your body time to metabolize it. You'll enjoy the experience more. You'll feel way better the next day. Plus, when you drink slowly and intentionally, you're less likely to reach for that second or third drink out of habit or peer pressure. So one tip here, because this is not always easy to do, decide in advance where your cutoff is and set a phone reminder. Might sound silly, but a 90-minute check-in reminder can be a game changer when you're out socially and your decision making starts to get a little relaxed. It can be really helpful just to have that reminder pop up on your phone. And then support your gut afterward. Don't just drink and hope for the best. Support your body through the recovery too. So afterwards, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Alcohol is very dehydrating, so drink plenty of water and consider adding electrolytes as well the next morning to help rebalance minerals. Nourish yourself, so get back to nutrient-dense meals with protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Skip those greasy hangover foods because your gut really needs nourishment at this point, not another assault. Have a nice big breakfast, that's fine, but try to avoid the junk. And then supplement support, if it's already part of your routine, you could consider a gentle binder like activated charcoal, taken away from meals and meds, or you can pick something that's soothing to the gut like glutamine or aloe vera juice, or a well-tolerated probiotic. Only use what you know already works for you and ideally under a provider's guidance. So one of my favorite tips here is a post-drinking gut reset tonic. So you blend water, a splash of aloe vera juice, and a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. And then you keep it in the fridge and you drink it the next morning. It's soothing, rehydrating, helps your gut get back on track faster. And you can also, if you have it on hand, add some milk thistle tincture to it. That's a liver supportive herb that can help after alcohol as well. So, really, a lot of this boils down to planning ahead and being intentional. Before you head into a social situation, just check in with yourself, set the intention. Is drinking worth it? Think about, how do I want to feel tomorrow? Is there any way I can still feel included and part of the fun without flaring my symptoms? Sometimes the answer is yes. I'll have one and enjoy it. Other times you might check in with yourself and realize it's not worth it. You can show up maybe with a fun mocktail. If you take sparkling water in a glass and add a lime to it, nobody knows you're not drinking alcohol. So you can get by on the social part holding that drink, and you don't have to explain to people why you're not drinking if you want to avoid that whole scenario. That's a good tip too. All right. Now, the bottom line is yes, alcohol can impact your gut health. It can throw off your microbiome, irritate your gut lining, and stir up symptoms if you're not careful. But it's not a black and white thing, just like so many things. It's really only when we exceed our threshold that we're causing damage to ourselves. It's just that alcohol is an area where that's easy to do, especially when you have gut issues going on. So we don't want to live in fear of it or cut it out forever. The key is being intentional, choosing cleaner options, knowing your triggers, eating beforehand, sipping slowly, and supporting your body afterwards. All these things add up. Gut health is a long game. One drink won't make or break you, but the way you consistently show up for your body will. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If this gave you a fresh perspective on alcohol and gut health, send it to a friend who needs to hear it too, or save it for the next time you're wondering whether your drink is going to be worth it.